We all know these sweet, pure stories about someone else's children. But what is the most evil thing you have ever seen a child do? My younger brother is a psychopath. We are 13 years apart. When I was very pregnant with my second child, he tried to drop kick me in the stomach and said he wanted to kill my baby. He was mad because I wouldn't let him play a video game. Another time when he was around 6 or 7, he took a baseball bat and jumped on the neighbor's car hood and started bashing it on the hood and roof, making dents. The neighbor came out horrified, and when he yelled at my brother, my mom came out and threatened to whoop the neighbor's ass. My mom is part of the reason my brother is such an ass. He's 17 now, and I'm sure he will end up in prison someday. I did childcare for a family with 3 kids. A girl who was 10 and 2 boys who were around 8 and 5. The youngest boy was a dick, to be honest. He was just mean. He'd hurt his siblings and me. Obviously a 5-year-old doesn't cause much damage, but he'd dig his nails into you, pull your hair, etc. He'd find it funny. He was also kinda manipulative and knew he could get away with anything, and seemed to play on that. He was extremely angelic looking, blonde hair and blue eyes and cherubic face. But he was not. One winter evening, picked the 3 kids up after some school performance and went to the local cafe. It seemed all the parents were going there to socialize, and we were all being picked up by the family's mom. So I was chatting at one of the tables with the parents while the kids played around. There were probably 15 kids of varying ages running around causing havoc. Suddenly, above the din, I hear a scream of pain. Quite obviously a different noise to the normal yelling and shrieking. I was too far away to see what had happened but got a horrible feeling in my stomach. Then, one of the siblings ran up to me and told me what had happened. Apparently, the 5-year-old ass had grabbed the hands of another kid and pressed them against the boiling hot radiator, holding them there while the kid screamed. I ran over there and berated him. The mother had already got to her own child, and he showed not 1 ounce of guilt or remorse. He was smiling when I ordered him to apologize to the other boy. Jesus, I'm half convinced he was a budding psychopath. Myself and all the other neighborhood kids used to catch frogs, salamanders, newts, the usual. We even had it down to a ridiculous level, in retrospect, where one of my friends could perfectly imitate the mating call of a tree frog. Sweet girl. Grew up pretty weird later on. Her little brother was a bit crazy, though. We had those styrofoam rockets from a museum of science, where the hollow rocket sat on a plastic cylinder. When you slammed down the whole apparatus, the air pressure would shoot the rocket up in the air at 20 to 40 feet or so. Well, her little brother stole our frogs one day and put them in the rocket. Cue my friend screaming in horror as she realizes what he's about to do. The frogs more or less exploded inside the rocket. We stopped using that rocket. My neighbor's daughter, 4, maybe 5, stomped on her rabbit in the garden while chanting, "This is for your own good," with each stomp. I told my neighbor what I saw, but my daughter would never do that, and now, we don't even say good morning. Interviewed an elementary student about what he wanted to be when he grows up. He said, serial killer. Alarming. But I just responded, that wouldn't work out very well. What about a job? So he says he wants to be a police officer, and it's an interview. So I ask him, why? Does he want to keep people safe? He told me he wants to use a gun. That's all. I hope he doesn't make it. I work with emotionally disturbed kids. So, you know, I see a lot of kids doing evil things. My worst one was when a kid grabbed a 3/4 full carton of milk at lunch and pissed in it to fill it up. He then, calm as anything, yelled for the principal to come out. As soon as he walked out of his office door, the kid threw the milk or piss all over him. The principal was wearing a down jacket, and I'll never forget the milky piss soaking into it, covering his face and hair. It was my first week working in this sort of environment, so I hadn't reached the point where I'd normalized it, and was so beyond horrified. Honestly, the calm, creepy manner he did it, and the joy he got, makes this situation stick out more than the kid who cut up a rat, or the kid who set a frog on fire. When I was in preschool, some kid a little mental snuck up behind me with safety scissors and snipped a hole in my cheek. That is the only clear memory I have of preschool. I was bleeding like crazy. I saw my 5-year-old neighbor kill a puppy for fun, and then he tried to blame it on my brother. Luckily, I witnessed the situation and cleared things up. My 7-year-old cousin shoved her cat into a duffel bag and zipped it shut, kept it in there after it pissed itself and vomited. Needless to say, my family found a better home for the cat. When I was around 8, me and a couple friends found a pretty large horned lizard in my grandmother's backyard. I was always fascinated by animals growing up, so I was super excited and examining how awesome it looked. Then my friends beat it to a pulp with sticks and rocks. I screamed at them that they were the worst human beings in the world, and went inside and locked the door. I refused to let them use the phone to call their parents to come pick them up, so they ended up just walking home. A friend of mine's daughter poked in the center woofer thingy of my really expensive speaker system. When I told her she couldn't do this, she laughed in my face and seemed to enjoy my disappointment. She didn't get any flack for it from her parents, as at their home, it's a mess and the kids can do whatever they want. I'm of the opinion, my house, my rules. Don't break my things, you children of the corn. Some kids at my bus stop shoved the outcast kid into a porta potty and tipped it over, door side down. That was pretty evil. I stopped 2 children throwing bricks on a cat while it was stuck under a fence. I will never forget it, and I will never understand how they could have been so wicked in the first place. When I was a kid, my neighbor down the road used to try to lure the neighborhood pets into his backyard and try to shoot them with a bow and arrow. I never heard that much about it, since I was pretty young, and I don't think there was ever any official police involvement over it, but I do remember people being in an uproar about it. I think it was eventually dismissed as a boys will be boys type of thing because he had fairly limited success doing it. When he was 20, he murdered a 5-year-old girl after luring her into his house when she started screaming. He hid the body in his basement and then joined the search for the missing girl as a volunteer. It took the police a shockingly long time to find her. One of my neighbors had a kid that legitimately tried to strangle a cat. They just sat there laughing at how precocious their little serial killer in training was, and it was obvious that the cat was struggling to get away. The cat finally got desperate enough to claw the little bastard, and the parents immediately ran it off yelling how it hurt their little angel. They didn't like it when I told them he got what he deserved. I knew a kid about 20 years ago. He was not quite right in the head. He had the look of a future mass murderer. It was creepy. I was looking out the window one day when his dog was on the other side of the street and he was in the middle. He saw a car coming, so he stepped onto the pavement. When the car was close, he called the dog and it was hit by the car. We all went off looking for it because it ran off. Anyway, it turned up. All good. About a month later, his little brother was on the other side of the road. Evil brat saw a car coming. You can guess the rest of his plan. But the mother was in her garden and shouted for the kid to stay. She treated him differently after that little escapade. Kid at our school made a film where he had buried a cat up to its neck. The rest involved a lawnmower. He showed it to my brother's class. Years later, he assassinated a congressman. My own daughter poisoned me for 6 years. It started when she was 17. I only realized it when I made her move out of my house for a different reason. I had been so incredibly sick for so long. 2 weeks after she left, and I was fine. A miraculous recovery. I understand that this sounds crazy. 3 years later, I have no contact with her, and my health is so much better. I mean, the residual health problems now are from what she did, not a naturally occurring illness like everyone had thought. My father died the year the poisoning began, and I believe that she realized she could get sympathy from her classmates by telling him, "My grandfather died or my mother is sick." Punch my gentle giant of a dog right in the face. Dog had just walked into the living room in her own home and visiting 7-year, punched her in the face. Kid's mom just said he doesn't like animals. Never had them over again. When I was renting an apartment in the city, the neighbors had a 9-year-old daughter who had learned in school that if you claim a man touched you, the police would come. Well, she happened to like the flashing lights. Saddest part is, she called 911 so many times with this crap just so she could see the lights, that the cops started showing up. No lights. And her mother was fined. It was an innocent kid thing, but also not really innocent, since she would claim one of several older male neighbors was touching her. Couple of them were actually brought in and then released, thankfully without the media being informed of the reasons. I had this little 4-year-old student that I was convinced is completely sociopathic. He was remarkably eloquent for his age, and as sweet as peach pie. When the adults were watching, one of the 3-year-old class teachers informed me he made a noose and tried to hang another child with it. Once, he came to me upset. I asked him what's up. He says another student wouldn't be his friend. I explained that not everybody wants to be friends, and that's okay. He said, but I want it, and she should listen to me. Kid I went to school with killed his little brother over a Pokemon card. I once saw a kid push a smaller kid in front of a Mardi Gras float. I used to teach an after-school program for students who were in low-income neighborhoods and had attendance issues at school. One kid was generally a nightmare. He was a little younger than the rest of the students, and he acted out mainly to get everyone's attention. One day, for the entire school day, he was really good and well-behaved, like scary good. I went up to him at the end, super excited, and told him, "You did so well, I'm so proud of you, keep it up." And he responded with, "I know, miss, thank you." And then after a moment, he asked for a high five. Of course, he could have a high five. I went all in for it, thinking I had make a breakthrough. Nope, he had stuck thumbtacks in between his fingers so I couldn't see them, and stabbed me in the hand with 4 of them. And the little monster laughed so hard he fell to the ground as I'm speechless watching him as my hand is dripping in blood. Not me, but my girlfriend works with juvenile delinquents. She told me about one of the girls she had to work with who was in there for dissecting cats, dogs, and other small animals while they're alive. Apparently, this girl would cut them open, cut off body parts, slice open their eyes, stick a screwdriver through their ears, and she would do it until she got bored. If they managed to live through it, she'd keep them alive, with no food or water, until she wanted to continue and do more later. Scared the hell out of me and gives me nightmares. I know it's stepping over my bounds, but when I saw her supervisor at a party, I specifically asked that she never be asked to see the girl again because it really messed her up. Had a neighbor losing her teeth in her 30s with 3 troubled children. The older 2 were banned from my property pretty early on. They were obvious problems waiting to happen, never waiting long. The youngest seemed mostly desperately lonely, and I felt bad because she was quickly isolated as the neighbors learned to stay away from the older kids. In her desperation, she used to literally stalk us, waiting outside the house, watching us from bushes, that sort of thing, trying to catch my daughter home to play with. Because my daughter was a friendly sort who would play with anyone. Then one afternoon, I caught her wrapping a rope around my daughter's neck and trying to push her down the slide. And that was the last time anyone but their cat was allowed near my house. Their cat was decent enough, at least. When I was 14 and home alone while my siblings were out playing with their friends, I remember feeling a chill roll through me as I looked out my front window to check on them. My little brother and his friends played in our front yard a lot. The kid I see had 2 older twin sisters and was known for being a bit mean to my brother. This kid was just staring mindlessly at our house for no reason. It weirded me out, so I shut the blinds, and about half an hour later, my baby brother ran in, sobbing and freaking out. I calmed him down and asked what happened. Apparently little Bob the bully had decided to squish a lizard and a baby bird to death in front of my baby brother. Well, no way was I having that. I stormed out and dragged that little ass to his home. The entire way he was laughing and recounting how my brother cried. I beat on his door, and his mother opened up in time to receive the little dick hurled at her. I told her what happened while the little freak laughed about it, and she sighed and was like, "Well, what do you want me to do? Maybe your brother shouldn't be so weak and wimpy." So, needless to say, 14-year-old me got in trouble for punching an adult that day. I was the child. The day after my dad had his vasectomy, I kicked him in the crotch. I was only 4, but still.